guys, it's ASBYT and this is the OnePlus 8T, the latest smartphone from OnePlus. I've been using it for around about a week and there's a fair amount of change here. It's mostly great, but there are a few potential concerns which will become clearer in a minute. So buckle up. This is my OnePlus 8T full review. So in case you aren't familiar with OnePlus and how they operate as a company, they usually produce their next-gen flagship smartphones around late spring, early summer, so the sort of April, May, June time every year. And then usually they release a kind of bumped up refresh in the form of a T variant in October time, so sort of 6 months later. So we have a kind of 6-month cycle on their device releases. Because of this, people have now become to expect a T variant every single year, but OnePlus don't actually guarantee it. And in that vein, they haven't produced an 8T Pro because they don't feel that there is enough they can do to that flagship smartphone. But they do with the mid to upper tier 8, enter the 8T. So let's break it down and see where those upgrades have been made and see whether they are significant enough for you to shell out your hard-earned cash. Starting with the display. So it's a 6.55-inch Full HD Plus flat fluid AMOLED display with a 120Hz refresh rate up from the 90 that we saw on the curved display of the 8. And while the higher refresh rate doesn't make for a huge difference, it's definitely smoother, and regardless of comparisons, if you're just straight looking for a new phone with a great display that's flat and not curved, this absolutely ticks a big fat box. It's really high end. There's no doubt about it, using Samsung panels, OnePlus are delivering some of the best displays on the market. The 8T also has a peak brightness of 1100 nits and has what's known as a Flowscape display design. What this means is it's 28% thinner and adopts a COP or chip-on-panel solution, where the screen chip actually bends over the back so that OnePlus were able to shrink that chin even further for this near 100% symmetrical bezel look, similar to what we've seen on the flagship iPhone chins. Another upgrade in this department, and something that I know a lot of you guys have been requesting for quite some time, and that is, of course, an always-on display feature, and I must say, it's pretty customizable, as you'll see. You have the canvas always-on display that can recommend portrait shots from within your camera gallery and turn them into a kind of sketch that is then set as your wallpaper, and the outline of this image is used as the always-on display. OnePlus have also partnered with Snapchat to provide a Bitmoji avatar option, although I've never really been quite sold on the avatar-esque sort of stuff, but I know a lot of you guys are. There are 11 clock face options showing you the time, notifications, and battery status, to name a few, and the always-on feature is definitely centered around digital well-being and helping you to kind of switch off from your screen if you're on it a bit too much, which of course follows on from the Zen idea that they introduced, which now has also seen an update to 2.0. This update, amongst others, allows for a group Zen mode now, so that more than one person in your group can leave that tech space behind for a short while to really and truly lose yourself in the here and now of the natural world. These software features and many others, like the new and improved dark mode, which is now accessible right in the quick settings, as is the brightness bar, which is just one swipe away instead of two, will all be made available in the Android 11 Oxygen OS 11 update. Now, the 8T is the first OnePlus device to feature the new Oxygen OS 11, but as far as I'm aware, and don't quote me on this, it will be rolling out to some of the more recent OnePlus devices as well, so those sorts of devices should be getting the always-on display as well. Fingers crossed for you. And as we're talking software, this leads me to my first potential concern. Let's dive. OnePlus have previously made phones that are known and loved for their close to stock Android software experience. But we heard a few months ago that OnePlus were looking to possibly steer a little bit away from stock in order to, in their eyes, improve the Android experience further. Now, while there aren't wholesale changes with the new Android 11 update, there definitely feels like there's a slight shift afoot, and I'll explain what I mean. If you look at the home screen and the app drawer, it still feels very stock. But when we enter into the settings menus, for example, there's definitely a sort of stock / Samsung One UI type of vibe going on, and it's definitely quite different from the Pixel 5, for example. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually really quite like what they've done here with the sort of boxed off sections, which work really well with the OnePlus Sans font, making everything look really clean, crisp, and easy on the eye. And the continued focus to improve one-handed controls is welcomed also. But with this real sense of a continued drive to tweaking the Android software to improve it further, I personally hope they don't go too far and stray too far away from stock and what Google have done, because I know for a fact that a lot of you guys, and me included, it was one of the main reasons why we fell in love with OnePlus phones in the first place. Great hardware, great price, and great almost stock software. But let me know in the comments what you think. Do you like this new trend of moving away from stock, or would you prefer them to stay as close to stock as possible? Very quickly, if you're enjoying this video so far, a sub would be awesome. So display and software have seen some pretty nice tweaks, but that will of course have an effect on battery performance. Is it better or worse than the OnePlus 8? Well, for starters, the battery cell is larger at 4500 mAh to the 4300 on the 8. But of course, we do have that higher refresh rate and the always-on display feature, which will hamper said battery life. I've been getting roughly around 6 hours of screen on time, which is really reasonable considering the battery size, but note that is with 120Hz turned on, but always on display off. So of course you will see a range within here if you decide to have both on, both off, or one or the other. If you do run out of juice, rest assured that with the 65-watt Warp Charge 65, you can charge your phone from 0 to 100% in just 39 minutes, thanks to the all-new twin battery charging technology. Charging tech is just getting ridiculous right now. Watch that get memed in about 5 years' time when you can charge your phone to 100% in about 1 minute. This new charging technology will also allow you to charge tablets and even certain laptops, which is great if you want to go traveling and you want to just take one charger for everything. Not that we can really go traveling at the moment. Drop a like on the video if you want 2020 to end now. There are 12 individual thermal monitors to keep charging temperatures at a safe level so that you shouldn't have any problems with overheating, something that's also important, of course, when we're talking about performance and gaming. Recent OnePlus phones have been excellent for gaming, and the 8T's cooling system apparently uses a large vapor chamber and thermally conductive silicone grease to dissipate heat effectively. This will look to ensure optimum performance when you're deep in the heart of battle. And so far, in the short time I've been using it and gaming on it, I've experienced pretty low heat coming from this little bad boy, which is encouraging, but avoiding thermal throttling with effective cooling systems is only one side of decent gaming performance, of course. You also need a good chipset. The Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 inside the 8T is not the very latest Plus variant, but it is, nevertheless, incredible. Some would argue the chipset provides an almost too good a performance for what most people use their smartphones for, but if you do want the very best performance in a smartphone, then the 8T is going to be right up there with the very best. Combined with the high refresh rate display, up to 12GB of RAM and 256GB of UFS 3.1 storage, you can take advantage of 5G network speeds, and daily tasks, social media, gaming, and snapping away on your camera has never been easier. And speaking of camera, it's probably one of the only areas of the 8T, from a hardware point of view, that we don't see any real tweaks. But that doesn't mean we don't have any changes. There is, of course, a change of positioning to the top left in this rectangular composition to allow improvements to thermal performance and network connections thanks to the new antenna placement, but the lens hardware is pretty much unchanged, so here, software is king. So let's break it down. We've got a 48MP Sony IMX586 primary sensor backed by a 16MP ultra wide angle, a 5MP macro, and a 2MP monochrome sensor. At 123 degrees, the ultra wide angle lens is the widest ever in a OnePlus phone and is available for day or nighttime use. There's max 4K 60 frames a second video on the rear, but only 1080p 30 on the front, which is a little bit of a shame, but selfies using that 16MP shooter are really nice and sharp with pretty decent edge detection. There's an improved stabilization system, and there's a new video portrait mode, which allows for that nice blurred background bokeh effect in video. To be honest, I must admit I was a little bit skeptical at first to see how they developed this in their video mode, knowing how the first gen versions from Samsung, for example, with their live focus video, were a little bit sketchy. I was expecting it to take a few takes in order for it to really get somewhere decent, but actually, straight from the gate, I was really pretty impressed. Edge detection on the whole seems okay, with a few stray hairs aside, and natural nature of the blur seem on point. They've done a pretty decent job here. There is no telephoto lens in that camera setup and no crazy periscope zoom that you would potentially see on some others, with only a max of up to 10 times of digital zoom. This might be perceived by some of you as a negative, which you could argue, but at least it means that the camera bump on the back isn't the size of Mars. And that aqua marine green finish, which uses light refraction to scatter light all over the shot, gives off this kind of gleam, which looks a little bit like an iced gem. Anyone remember those? No? Just me? Okay. OnePlus say that this finish actually allows for a reduction in fingerprints while still maintaining that glossy finish. And while you definitely do still get fingerprints, it does kind of help. It's almost kind of a halfway house between gloss and frost. That sounds a little bit like a music duo. I'll buy their album. So where does the OnePlus 8T sit on the market, and should you buy it? Well, that really depends on number 1, price, and number 2, what are you upgrading from? So firstly, price. Well, as of making this video right now, there is no confirmed price. You'll probably know watching this video because this will be coming out straight after the launch. But presumably we're looking at a ballpark figure of around £600 here in the UK. To directly compete with the likes of the Google Pixel 5 and the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE, both of which I have reviewed already. Yes, there's no wireless charging. Yes, there's no official IP rating, although OnePlus do claim their classic, it is water resistant, but they just don't want to pay for that IP rating. But for that price, the 8T really is compelling. You get a hell of a lot here for your money. And number 2, what are you upgrading from? There are a lot of changes with this device, as we've touched on, both hardware and software, but most are really tweaks as opposed to wholesale changes. The way I see it, if you have a OnePlus 8 or even a OnePlus 7T, which I think is still an incredible phone and was probably ahead of its time a little bit, I don't really feel there's enough here to upgrade and shell out £600 odd. But if you're in the region of the sort of OnePlus 6, OnePlus 6T, then I definitely think there is a hell of a lot of phone here, and it's definitely worth that upgrade. Either way, if you just want one of the best phones available right now for the sort of £600 mark, then the OnePlus 8T is a brilliant, brilliant phone. I've literally just at this moment checked my emails, and I do have a confirmed price. $549 is what the 8T starts at in the Lunar Silver colour, which is of course the alternative colour, and that's in 8GB of RAM. Under £600, yeah. Compelling. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I will be doing comparison videos with the Google Pixel 5 and the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE. Too many letters, too many words. All three of them are very compelling devices around that sort of £600-700 mark, so I think they are worthy competitors. So I think those will be hopefully helpful videos for you. Like and share if you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. Subscribe and hit the notification bell if you love everything tech. Yeah, all with too many words at the end of a video. I love you, leave you. I'll see you in the next one. Take care, peace out.